I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Greetings and welcome to a not too heavy rain, but one that's needed. Excuse me. The grass is.
My agenda in the truck.
Yep, go for
I got
it.
an extra one. Go.
Or unless you got notes on it.
I've got, no, but I've got all the emails and stuff that I printed out.
Oh.
If you want to run up,
It'll
go.
just take me a minute, so.
We'll stall. We're good at that.
Go ahead and start.
Okay. Actually, we did have visitors next, and that's where I was going to have you do that. But so Joe gets back and hears the whole thing. What we'll do is we'll jump over to review a budget report.
One of the things, a couple of things I put out in front of you. One is a budget report which reflects all revenues and expenses. Joe may have a little bit of money in the drawer today, I don't know, but basically it reflects all of the revenues and expenses to date. But that does not, in essence, reflect our year-end position, because one of the things is that there are bills that will be coming in July, which are for, in essence, June purchases. Even in the case of our electric bills, when we get an electric bill around the 10th of July, if it reflects kilowatt usage in June, that's a bill that gets paid in July and booked back to the previous year. The other thing is I did do journal entries in the police department as it relates to the COPS grant, so all of the wages and associated benefits with Adam O'Neill, who in essence is working under the COPS grant. There's journal entries so that any wages that he was paid up until today, and actually today was the last paycheck of the year, a journal entry is reflected so that those wages are taken out of the budget and moved over to the COPS grant expense, along with any employee benefits, i.e. medical insurance, retirement, disability insurance, anything that's employee related gets charged against the grant. And so those adjustments are done. The only other similar type of adjustment that will need to be done affecting the police department is we have like 3 or 4 other police grants going on, a click it or ticket grant, a DUI grant, and a highway safety grant. Maybe the total is $10,000 or $12,000. And we charge people's wages to the grant right straight through the entire year, but because of the way that our payroll system works is we have to wait till the end of the year to be able to run a calculation on the VEMRs, unlike the COPS grant, to run a calculation on the retirement, Social Security, and these types of things, and so there needs to be another adjusting entry. And Brent Newton is the police officer that handles much of the reimbursement request. So there's probably another $3,000 or $4,000 from the police department expenses that will be reduced because of the difference between the wages and the total cost for that. So, but don't get overly excited about the $3,000 or $4,000. And the reason is that any gas that's been burned up by the police department during the month of June, that bill's going to come in July, and that's going to be charged back to the previous year. So I'm just going to touch upon this because I know I don't want to get too deep into this projection thing, because that's discussion that we will just end up having to talk about again at the time of looking at and potentially adopting next year's budget, and it deals with the forecast. There's a spreadsheet there. I can see Joe's got his in front of him. Peter, this other spreadsheet which I put together, which basically allows me to predict where we're going to land, or very closely predict where we're going to land once all of the expenses are reflected and all of the revenues revenues have been deposited, which obviously we have until the end of the week. And we can in turn predict what our year-end position might be. And as you can see here, based on the information that we have at this point, I'm predicting a preliminary fund balance of, what is it 119, or whatever the number on the bottom is, 119. You know, that's not the number. However, I will tell you, I don't think that number is going to change very much. And you'll notice above there where it says TBD related to reduction in deferred revenue and accounts payable. Accounts payable is the easiest to explain, and as I've mentioned, any other bills that come in July that have to be charged against the previous year will be charged. Typically, unless there's some big purchase, and there isn't anything out there in that regard, it's probably about $15,000. It's somewhere in that range in the general fund, about $15,000. Relative to deferred revenue, what deferred revenue is the amount of delinquent taxes that are not collected within the first 60 days of the fiscal year. All right, now right now, a year ago, our deferred taxes, again, taxes that did not get collected within 60 days, was $50,600. All right, now obviously, if we can improve upon that position 60 days into the next fiscal year, that basically adds money to the fund balance, and we are going to do that. And the reason why I know we're going to do that is because we've already done it. Our balance of delinquent taxes, I think, Joan, is around, if you exclude interest and penalty, it's like $44,000. And so we haven't even got to the end of the fiscal year, and we're already $6,000 ahead of the game from a year ago, and that position is only going to improve. And, I don't have a crystal ball, and yes, I can push to collect as much as I can the first 60 days, but I can't reach into their back pocket and actually start pulling money out of their wallet and giving it to Joan. But I really am pretty confident that there's some accounts in there that are going to come in within the 60 days, which will easily take care of that $15,000. And so I'm going to stick my neck out and say that at an absolute minimum, I'm going to say this, at an absolute minimum, we will end up with a fund balance of at least $119,582. I do suspect that it might be a little more than that, but if it is, it's not going to be very much more.
That's pretty close to what you said the last time. Didn't you say 121?
Yeah.
The last
Good
meeting?
thing I'm not a betting man. I'm not a betting man, but I'm gonna say it's gonna be 126,000. Anybody else want to take odds? No.
Yeah.
Only kidding.
So anyway, and
Good.
like I say, I'm just gonna stop there. The budget report, I don't like handing you a budget report 2 minutes before a meeting, but I also wanted to get today's bills in a budget report for me and you, and get today's payroll in this budget, so you really have, very up-to-date information in front of you, which can also, help predict year end, but also can give you additional good information as we look at next year's budget.
Am I right? Is this an appropriate way to think about the fund balance? That in essence, it's a surplus of income over expenditures for the prior year's potential. So it means that we start out the year, before we've collected or spent anything, we start out with $120,000 in the bank, so to speak. And that potentially becomes either something we continue forward for emergency situations, or it becomes something that we use as part of the new budget for the coming year.
Correct, correct. Yep.
We
Yeah.
were at a higher number, Peter. We were up in the 180s,
229.
229 at one time. And
Yeah.
over the last 3-4 years,
It's coming down.
it's coming down.
Right.
And just thank somebody that we had a real mild winter last year for
Yep.
Public Works. Because that could have had one large impact on this.
Yep.
Yeah, and really, you are right, Peter, and you know, when we get to the end of the fiscal year and we actually have that money in the bank, you know, there's you know, a couple things you could do. You know, it's, you know, some municipalities, you know, consciously only use 95% of the grand list. I mean, they build a pad right into their budget.
Right.
We typically don't do that. I will tell you that when we adopted the budget that we are currently in, we anticipated a fund balance of $122,000, and we used that entire $122,000 when we set the tax rate of 60.07 cents.
Right.
As it turned out, that fund balance was not $122,000, it was $118,000 and some change. That's the true starting point. So the point is on the first day of the current year's budget, we were $4,000 in the hole, right out of the gate.
Because we had put that money into the budget.
Not only did we put the entire amount,
Yeah.
but the amount that we put in was a little ambitious,
Yes, okay,
a little
yeah.
ambitious, all
Okay,
right?
all right.
And so, you know, I would have rather have seen the number be on the other side. And to give you an example of being on the other side, when we finished FY '09, as Michael says, we had this very easy winter. I mean, the '08, '09, I'm not sure if it was easier last winter, but both those winters were basically non-events for us. That, coupled with a lot of other items, it created a fund balance of $229,000. That's 10 cents on the tax rate. And the city council said, well, the city council that was sitting at the table at that time said, let's keep taxes stable and let's use roughly half of the 229 to keep taxes stable, all right? And that's what they did. And so in that instance, there was basically $100,000 that in essence kind of sat in a rainy day fund for a year. And that in essence, that same money came out of the rainy day fund and got used for the current year. And it's almost ironic that the two numbers end up being very similar from one year to the next.
Okay. I understand.
All right, any questions of Mel on the budget? Or you can hold them until the city manager's report. Other thing I'd like to take care of, so I don't get lost totally. I'd ask for a motion on the approval of the minutes for June 12th, city council meeting.
Make said motion.
Mandy makes the motion. And Rennie makes the second. I'd ask for any omission, corrections, or errors at this time. Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Thank you. Now, we're gonna go back and hear visitors. Ladies, who wants to go first?
So I'm here to thank the City Council for their time that they spent working with the Friends of Vergennes Opera House over the past few months. I know it's been a chunk of time. We know the community supports our work at the Opera House. We see it in our members and our patrons and the funds the voters in our surrounding towns approved for us this fiscal year. We've seen that other municipalities with similar community centers and city-owned buildings provide broad, direct support to that arts organization. And we believe Vergennes can support the Opera House in much the same way. With support from the city, we can continue to provide year-round facilities management and community events. There are many ways for the Opera House and the city to work together to keep our city a lively center for residents and visitors alike. And we look forward to working with you guys on those endeavors. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Arlene, did you have anything you wanted to
I
add?
had nothing prepared, so I'm happy to take any questions.
All right, any questions at this time of the ladies?
I've got a question. I'm curious about, your historical revenue stream.
Mhm.
Has it been difficult the last couple of years in terms of ticket sales or events? Just because of the general economic malaise, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're seeing in our events is that people are making choices when they're, it might be that people were, I don't want to say laissez-faire about, I'm going to spend $25, I'm going to spend $40 for a ticket. But I think people are being much more thoughtful as to what events they're going to and going to fewer events as a general aspect of that. So the profit margins for events have always been small, and these days it takes a lot of effort to make sure we're getting the audiences that we need to make things break even.
Do you have specific types of events that tend to bring you more profit than others for a certain amount of effort?
There, again, we work hard to sort of figure out sort of what our audiences are and what we're like, and the types of events that we can do. We have some of the events that we do, each year we do Broadway Direct that sort of has a built-in audience, the Bluegrass Gospel Project that comes back every December, that, that those are good performing shows that people like to do year after year, so that we sort of stick with those. We're not taking very many chances at all on our events programming in the last few years, and it's a conscious decision because of the fact that we can't afford to have a bad event.
Our biggest drop in revenue was 60% from 2008 in our business support. And as we know, 2008 hit all of us. And as we looked at our budget over the years, like, oh, we had X dollars in 2008. Now we look at 2012, and it's a 60% drop off from what we were able
Has
to
the
get from our
effort been
community.
similar in order to try and get people to donate? It's just a
Yeah,
matter of-
and again, it's not necessarily the number of businesses are down, it's the amount of money that each
Yeah.
specific business is able to give. Before we might have gotten $5,000 from a business, now we can get $300,
Yeah.
and that's significant drops in that.
Have you seen that rebound at all since the 60% drop?
Not really, it's been pretty similar the past couple of years.
We've also changed our approach too. We've really been working with our businesses to offer sponsorships as another way of supporting us, rather than, here, give us $300. We say, look, we're bringing Commander Cody. Wouldn't that be great? Would you like to have your name all over the poster? So it's their advertising dollars that they might have spent putting an ad somewhere goes on the poster. So we're trying to make it much more clear, win-win for both of us. We both get something out of this, and they can put their name to a particular thing that they might like the free Friday movies. Do you want to do a movie about that sort of relates to your business? So, things like that.
So, we're talking about the budget tonight,
Mhm.
and you made more of a general statement.
Mhm.
How does that tie into our budget discussion tonight?
Well, there's
Sure.
been a request
Right.
for $10,000,
The general
Okay.
statement was very much for
which is not in the budget.
to restate why we're here and for the viewers at
Okay,
home,
all
sort of
right.
thing. Because
Okay.
unless there's more
I-
information, which
I
we're happy to
forgot.
give you about
No.
what we need and what we would like to have and how it would be used and how it would support us, we're more than happy to do that. So it was just a general, here we are, thank you.
Any other questions? Ladies, before I allow Kevin to take the floor, I just want everyone to know that I received a letter from Scott Gaines that we wanted shared with the council. Kevin and I have passed that on. That is in support of the Vergennes partnership request. So now I'll turn the meeting over to Kevin.
Well, actually, I was going to comment on the Vergennes Opera
Oh.
House request.
That's all right. You can do that too.
Mainly, it's just from my perspective, from doing economic development for the partnership for the last year or so. I've just noticed that, and I think most everybody can notice that when the show comes to town, it's well attended, that there's a fallout to the downtown area. There's a fallout for Vergennes. Anything that can happen downtown brings people into town, helps the restaurants and the local businesses, brings Vergennes to a spotlight, makes it look like it's an attractive place to live and do things, makes it look culturally active. So I just want to,
from the board's perspective, as a representation of the Vergennes partnership, our board is in support of the Opera House, and we're in support of the request for the $10,000.
Did you have some other issues that you wanted to?
Yes.
You still have the floor, sir.
And now I'm here to talk.
Yeah.
You didn't change your hat, come on.
To talk about the Vergennes partnership and looking for a little bit more support financially from the city for the partnership. Currently, as you probably all know, there's about $5,000 that gets annually contributed to the partnership, and that's come down historically from some time ago. It's been at about $5,000 for a number of years. Mel can probably say for exactly how long. I'm only new to the partnership in the last
I think
year,
it's been. I think it's been the last 3 years. It's
3
possible
years.
that it's been 4, but I think.
I think you're right, yeah, give or take.
And in that time, I think we came into the financial hardship 2008, 2009, and the ability for the volunteers to really do a lot of unpaid time and spend time in the partnership has basically gone down to almost nothing. In the past couple of years, I've been able to do some economic development on a volunteer basis only because I'm a consultant and I could really control the time I spent doing it and then working other hours to make up for it. But I could have easily spent 20 to 40 hours a week doing it and felt that I was accomplishing a lot. But I've recently changed jobs and now I'm actually full-time employed and I can no longer do that. So my ability to do that piece on a volunteer basis is weaned down to practically nothing. So now I'm taking over the president role and doing less economic development. But basically what we're looking at is, volunteers that are trying to do a job that really is more than a volunteer, you can ask a volunteer to do. And I think we've actually got Tara Brooks now as a part-time paid executive director. And she's been only working 8 hours a week for us since we started that with her. But we since moved into this summertime period because her employment, her hours at the Opera House dropped off to bring her up to 20 hours a week. But we can only do that through the summer. And then she moves back down to 8 hours a week. And that, in that time span and through the end of the next fiscal year, we'll basically use up on that schedule. We'll use up what funding we have currently sitting in our bank account, in addition to some other things that we're planning on doing. But there's not a whole lot of money there. So in order to actually increase our membership revenue has dropped down to pretty much nothing because no one's been able to spend a lot of time and effort on doing that membership drive and trying to promote the partnership and getting it more vital and making it look as if there's something for us to have someone donate to. So it's kind of been a catch-22, and the more volunteers we're trying to do in these times, it's been difficult for us to actually get the partnership up and running to make it look like there's something there for someone to contribute to. So it's been a catch-22 from that perspective. So I guess what we're, the final conclusion I'm trying to bring to the table here is to potentially increase the contribution the city makes, so that we can actually increase the number of hours our executive director works and spends time on working on partnership activities. And I apologize, I think the last meeting I said I was trying to get a letter out to you guys kind of explaining all this. I just haven't had the time. And I don't know if, I have a list of things that our executive director could be working on that we've actually agreed to have her work on over the summer, but she could continue to do that through, if we were to keep her hours at 20 hours through the end of next fiscal year, June 2013, we'd be able to accomplish a lot more. But I don't want to get into that unless there's some, request for that, or you guys want me to spend the time doing that. But essentially, I think if we could get just even another $4,000 or $5,000, that would actually help quite a bit to get us through to the end of next fiscal year and have her spend more time working on a number of initiatives that we're trying to get pushed through. Thanks.
Anybody on council have any questions of Kevin?
I have one question. So, Kevin, there's $5,000 in this upcoming budget allocated, and you have $5,000 currently as a balance?
We actually had about 10.
Okay. So you're saying in order to do what you would like to do, you need an additional, you're not just asking for the 5 to continue, but an additional 4 or 5 on top of that, is ideally what would make the partnership work.
Right, and the reason is the current amount we have plus the 5 that's coming, we anticipate being able to use that all up with the 20 hours through the end of this summer, and then at 8 hours going through the end of June of next year, on top of some of the other things we've already got planned for expenses.
Could you maybe in like 2 or 3 bullets, just what would this lead to? I mean, what are you're trying to accomplish? I mean, it's pretty obvious that you want to expand your membership or go back and create your membership. And when you've done that, where are you going? I mean, it's like, what would the extra money, I mean, obviously it's gonna go for Tara's time, or somebody's time, but maybe 3 bullets about what would be being done.
Certainly. We actually have 4 committees within the partnership, and they're economic development, marketing, promotion, organizational, and design. And those are the functions that she kind of would oversee and help with their initiatives and moving them forward. In terms of marketing and promotion, we've got a Vergennes Green program that we started up. We kind of revitalized, but we need someone to kind of oversee it, try and help promote it some more, get some marketing out there, talk to businesses, promote more businesses to be involved with it. Group ads, we started a group ad in some of the hotel marketing brochures that go out. Someone could actually, trying to get that promoted to help the businesses downtown. Try and help out with downtown events, along with the chamber that does some of the events downtown. And also maintain the website that we've got created that's going to be the face of Vergennes on the wireless eventually once we get it up and running. From an economic development perspective, there's a long list of things, but mainly what I was doing, what I see her helping out with is doing, meeting with businesses, walking around town, finding out what people's needs are and concerns are, at least hearing some of those things and trying to help be a liaison between the city and the businesses in terms of business owners, real estate owners, residents, being involved in discussing their long-term plans and short-term plans, also in terms of vacancy, vacant space, trying to help network and get tenants and owners together, being involved with and networking within the local, state, and regional stakeholders in terms of state agencies and various organizations that are trying to promote Vermont and downtown areas, the state programs, going to meetings, all of those things. Organizational, like you said, membership development, trying to get that kick-started and help promote that, get the information out to, and also coordinate volunteers for various events and committees, being a forefront and a lead on communications for the partnership. In terms of design, I see that being part of like the infrastructure, recreational type things that need to happen downtown and in Vergennes in general, and coordinating with the city's recreational group in terms of trying to do grant writing or whatever there is needs for streetscapes or recreational parks improvements and those kind of things. I mean, there's a number of these things, plus many more that I didn't mention, that we could be doing that's not currently done by anybody else in the city.
Gives me a good perspective, thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions of Kevin?
I don't have questions, I have a few comments and questions of Mel, but I don't know what we want to take them now.
We're gonna take those actually in the budget. I'd rather hold the council to discussion as far as recommendations once we get to the budget. That way we aren't jumping in and out of that. Okay? Okay, excellent.
I just want to make one more quick comment that sort of has to do with the partnership. But I don't know if anybody was aware, there was a travel writer from the Boston Globe in town last week, and they're doing a feature story on Vergennes, and I'm not sure if it's going to come out this next weekend or another weekend. But I think that sort of feeling of Vergennes comes from things like the Opera House and the partnership. and having that all in here. And I think having a feature in the Boston Globe is going to be a great thing for the town. So I just want to mention that as well.
Excellent. Beautiful. Glad to hear that. Very positive. Thank you. All right. Next thing we gotta go back and talk about is warrants. Does anybody have any questions? I know that they signed them, but does anybody have any questions about the warrants? Peter, you usually have one or two. You're sitting in Chris's chair, you realize. It's your responsibility.
I already signed it.
That's okay. You can still question it.
You didn't waive your rights, though.
Yeah.
This is the one?
Yeah.
Too many budgets in front of me here. Massacre testing, public safety, Department of Public Safety.
Yeah,
Is that fire department or police department?
that's fire department.
That's
All of
fire-
the,
okay,
the
yep.
Scott Air Packs,
Yep.
those have to go through a testing thing every year.
You have to be fit tested annually.
Yep, okay. I knew that, I just wasn't sure exactly who it was for.
Good question. Ziggy? Nice hairdo, by the way.
Oh, thanks. No hairdo.
Wow, you had it cut.
Yeah, I did. The Todd Channing Construction Company, First Street Lift Station, what's that?
Yeah, the Town and Country,
It's over there.
Otter Creek Park, First,
Okay.
Second, and Third Street. That's what it said in the bill. Leslie puts those descriptions. So first, that pump station is at the end of First Street.
Okay.
Okay, so it just deals with, you'll notice the bill, we paid X amount of dollars. We totally rebuilt that pump station this year. I think Todd's, that final bill, I don't know why it came 3 months late, but anyway, that's the final bill on his side. His company is the one that actually does the installation of that new pump station.
I actually do have one more question. Why
Certainly.
are we paying the state treasurer a dump truck payment?
Because we have a loan with the state of Vermont through their municipal
Okay,
equipment
all right.
program.
That's fine.
I think there's one more year, 2 more years on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move on.
That was the best deal, Pete, where to borrow the money.
I'm sure.
That was one stone we got blood out of. Okay, back to jump through public comment. Any public comment at this time?
I have one question.
Certainly.
I don't know if it's the right time, but it refers to Mel's comment that the last year fund balance regarding the budget. Should we wait till later or?
So throw your question out now, please.
He said it was the prior year fund balance was put in the budget for this year?
Well, I'm gonna say yes. Basically, when, if you don't take fund balance into account, let's just start from there, all right? And you have a anticipated revenue stream, which would include property taxes and supplemental revenues, and then you have expenses. If the sum of the taxes and the supplemental revenues equal the expenses, then you could start the year out with no money in the bank. And if you took in all of the money you anticipated taking in and you spent all the money that you anticipated spending, you would end the year with zero. All right. Now, what has been happening the last few years, most credit going to Mother Nature, is that we haven't used salt and sand and overtime and whatever. And so what happens is that the way that we do budgeting here is that when you have an easy winner, it's the taxpayers that gave us the money to fund whatever is in the budget. And therefore, if you have an easy winner and there's $100,000, like for instance in the Public Works budget, I think they're under budget by $118,000. 98% of that is the result of an easy winner. It's the taxpayers that got that money here. We act kind of like an escrow company, all right? And at the end of the year, if you still have it, one option is to use that money to offset the following year's revenue needs.
Is that what happened?
That's what we've been doing the last few years, absolutely. So basically,
The whole amount was offset against revenue?
The year that we ended with $229,000, which was ending FY09, we used $125,000 of that to, in essence, offset expenses that equaled $125,000 more than taxes and supplemental revenue. The following year, we ended the year with $118,000. This was FY11. We actually planned on using 122,000 of the 118. That math doesn't work, all right? But anyway, that's what the way the budget was put together. This current year, not talking about proposed, the current year we planned on using 122, only had 118 to use it. If you want to talk a little bit about next year's budget, this budget, as I've put it together, uses $121,000. All right. So let's say that my fund balance is right on the money at $119,000, and to not raise taxes, and if we can't find any supplemental revenues that are out there, and there are no cuts in the budget, then the property tax need, based on that information, needs to go up by $3,000. If there, for instance, if the council was to fund the Opera House, that $3,000 turns into $13,000. If an additional $4,000 for the partnership, that turns into $4,000 more. Also, if there's any wage adjustments, because there's nothing in the proposed budget at this point in the form of wage adjustments, and that, typically would be talked about tonight or soon, prior to the end of the year. And whatever that number is would also be added to that tax need.
So the 118 that came from last fiscal year
Correct fiscal year.
was put in as an offset against this current year's revenue stream.
Correct.
And we still ended up with the year with 119. So, and you're saying that's essentially from Public Works?
Well, I know you don't have this
That
spreadsheet, but
50,000
it comes from
is
two different.
winter-related expenses, I just looked at it.
Right, 50, there was.
Of 97 surplus.
Correct. It's a combination of, if you just look at budget versus actual, we spent my projection is that we're gonna spend $72,000 less than the budget, which is like money in the bank. And then we plan on taking in $50,000 in revenues beyond what that budget is. Okay? The combination of those two. The budget already took into account the fund balance at the start. This is really used to predict the fund balance going into the next year.
Okay.
You're welcome. Okay. So next item, we'll go to item 4A, committee reports. Does anybody have anything to report?
I got a couple things.
Thank you.
Mel forwarded me a email from a citizen who's running a summer program. They'd like to do some work in the skate park. Want to build a bench and paint a mural. So I kind of gave him the go-ahead on the bench, and I asked for a description of the mural before we sort of give a go-ahead on that. Secondly, there's a meeting of the Outdoor Classroom Steering Committee tomorrow that I hope to attend. I should be able to attend. The third thing briefly is that we got a conversation with Diane Lanfer regarding the exercise or the walking path. So we're going to be kind of going to work on that now that Mel's back. We can kind of maybe look for the plans that had been made a few years back, and maybe Rennie, with your help, we
You
can.
talk about the rail trail?
Rail trail?
Yeah, rail trail, yeah, rec path or rail trail. Yeah.
This is a project that Rennie and I both inherited.
Right.
I inherited it from Rennie.
Yeah.
Ready in here?
Somebody else, right?
Right.
But
But
I think
hopefully we
we
can move it
try to help
forward
you out.
inch by inch over the next year. So I've been talking with Diane about that. She's excited about it. Hopefully that'll help us tap into some funds up the road a bit.
And as long as we're on recreation, there's been an email floating around from Lease about having some interest. We just gotta figure out how we disseminate the information and who emails come back to or whatever, because apparently she is interested in possibly having tennis lessons again this year, but not sure what the interest is out in the community.
Right.
And so, I don't know if she's looking for us to drive the train, but I don't wanna dump it on City Hall, cause they already have everything they can handle right now.
I
So
spoke with her, and she said that there was an individual interested in heading that up. I wanted to know what the status of it was. I said, have him contact me, and at this point, I haven't heard anything more, so.
I have an email at home.
Okay,
Lee
Lee called me about a month ago, so it's been a while.
Yeah, well, she sent an email to end up my wife's, or both of our accounts.
Okay.
And I'll forward it to you, and you can digest it.
Okay.
And I think if we can figure out who the focal point needs to be and how we want to control this.
The work has not been done on a basketball court yet, is that correct? I haven't been down to look, but.
I was
no,
down there
It's
Sunday.
been, yeah, it's been signed, everything's all set. I'm really a little bit surprised, Joe, that we haven't seen them yet. I'll follow up.
Okay.
I'll follow up this week.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Joe. Anybody, anything else? The other thing I'm going to try to do is add to the agenda is about anything to report on membership goals. One of the things that I'd like to report is been stopping into a few business. I did contact a Heather Banks from Goodrich and had a lengthy talk with her about their position with our city and the future of their company and the transition of the name. And I am going to be up to see Joan and grab a couple of bottle of wine and go down and see the general manager. And I'm not sure if they do it slightly after they change the name as a welcome to Vergennes type, even though you've been here, So I did tell Heather that I would be making contact, and I do have a number on how to get in touch with them now. So that's something that I have done. Anybody else have anything they want to report?
Hey, Mike, in regards to that, would you be opposed if I was to join you on that meeting?
Whatsoever. Nope.
Because I like that.
Like I said, I've already done my sales pitch to Heather, because there was some stuff floating around that I had for information that I wasn't really comfortable with. And I don't like to point fingers and throw a whole bunch of stuff in the air and cause a hullabaloo until I know what their directions are. And I have a much better feeling for what I was feeling. So we're headed good, and their celebration, there won't be any celebration or event when they do the name change, at least at present. If there is, I will be notified. So, okay. I will make a note, Kevin, is I try to make those things late in the day, but again, I'm not sure what Tony's schedule is and when he's going to be able to fit in. I'll give you a heads up.
Yeah, no, I'll try and fit in whatever.
Okay.
Whatever works.
Okay. All right. Good deal.
I had an informative meeting with Jim Laro a couple weeks ago, I guess. I called him up and said I'd like to just sit down and talk about public works and streets and sidewalks and stuff. And it was very informative. I mean, a lot of information that I knew nothing about, and but it kind of flows into what I would like to try and work on, which is, just maintenance and infrastructure and that sort of thing, and budgeting for the future and that sort of thing.
Okay. Good. Good. Anything else? Okay.
Mike?
Andy, sure.
I should have thought of this during public comment, but people should be aware that on Monday night, the high school board is going to have a meeting and talking to the public about a bond that may come up for a vote as soon as November. And among the things we're talking about are major renovations to the auditorium, possibly even a track and an artificial surface for the soccer field, as well as it started out with a discussion of $2 million of improvements, but it could get up to the $4 or $5 million range. So
There was an email that did come, and supposedly, and I don't know if the rest of you have received it, but supposedly the email was sent out to all town fathers to attend that meeting.
So I just thought it would be the
Figured it.
suggestion with the cameras on as well, that's all.
Yeah.
That they're going to be able, I think they're going to discuss it publicly starting at 7 o'clock on Monday night.
Okay.
There'll be an article in the paper with some details on it on Thursday.
I was not trying to slight you in any way, that's just a
That's
figurative
all right.
speech, town fathers. Maybe that is not politically correct. I apologize, Nikki.
And then you go on the phone and say, oh, you're a woman. That was Ziggy.
Okay, so anyways, by all means, it's at the library at VUHS Monday, and I believe it's 7 p.m. Thank you for bringing that up, Andy. Okay. We're going to go now to old business. The first item A, of course, is the proposed city green policy, use policy, and we're deferring that to the July 17th, 2012. And just letting you know at this time that we will only have one meeting in July, and it will be on the 17th.
How come?
Because the last one is I will be on vacation.
Okay.
And so we're gonna hit the middle line and give, summertime we take lesser meetings, okay? So item number 8, new business. Mel, you wanna explain how we ended up on that? I think you can
What's
do it
that? Which
briefly.
one?
John Graham.
Okay, you want to skip 7? I just want to make a couple.
Oh, excuse me, no, let's back up,
No,
let's go to
just
7.
talk to the 8.
Let's go to 7.
Yeah,
Good
just-
try, Mike.
It's okay.
Good try.
Just two really very minor things. Obviously, I wasn't at the last meeting, but did review the minutes. And one of the things, Rennie, that you brought up was during the discussion about zoning, dealt with zoning fees. And I just want to let you know that the city council did review fees that actually hadn't been reviewed for quite a while. And those got updated, I'm going to say about 1.5 years or 2 years ago. Not that there is a huge difference. It probably resulted in an increase of about 40% in fees, but obviously it's really driven by applications, and if you don't get them, you don't get them. You don't get any fees. So that has been addressed, and to some degree. We certainly don't make money on zoning fees. It's really about how much you lose. So anyway, I just want to let you know, and I'll actually get a copy of you and some background on that, because the council had the DRB get involved with trying to forecast really what it costs for administration of zoning in town, and then there's a little bit of a philosophical philosophy as to whether or not zoning fees should pay for 100% of that program or some portion. I think it's been felt that because there is a general benefit to zoning, that if half of the cost gets recouped in fees and half gets covered by applicants, then that's reasonable. But again, I know that some towns, as you know, they generate revenue. I mean, it's a revenue maker for them, and it's not the case the way that we've been doing it, but we could examine that. The other thing on zoning, Mike mentioned about the one meeting in July. I have sent the warning for the city council's final public hearing on the zoning regs for July 17th. Mike had asked me to provide you this evening with, in essence, where you're at, and I have not had time to get together with Shannon. We are at a point where we can give you replacement pages. I mean, if you look at the minutes to your last meeting, I think they're very detailed as to what the city council, in essence, voted on relative to those changes. So we'll get you those replacement pages, but that's, like I say, it's been put in the Addison Independent for publication this Thursday. And just to reiterate, the process is at that public hearing. Obviously, you can, it's to receive additional testimony, Once that public hearing closes, you really have three options. I certainly hope we don't want to go to the third. One option is to adopt those regulations as warned, and they would go into effect 21 days after that decision. Another option would be to have, if there's a majority of the members of the city council that feel that there should be additional changes, if there's a majority that feels that there should be, then those changes would require another hearing. A third option is to do nothing, and if you do nothing with the regs, then they die a natural death. I'm assuming that we don't. I can assure you, you'll have 6 very upset people, and maybe more. But I know you'll have 6 very upset people if you were to choose option 3. So we'll get that to you very quickly.
We could potentially adopt the regulations
At night.
that night.
That night, absolutely.
And then you
Yeah.
said 21 days later
Right.
after that, so
Right.
sometime in August, they would actually take effect. Not too far off, because if we don't do much of anything, they have until September 8th. But this is causing them a lot of work, where they're doing both set of regs.
The other thing I just wanted to bring up, and just wanted to say a public thank you to Jason Farrell for filling in for me as zoning administrator. He very quickly turned the key back over to me the other day, and thank me for that opportunity. So we're back to the public is. Some of the public is still a little confused because they're sending Jason emails about things, and just because of the division of duties, members of the DRB really, it's a quasi judicial function, and so I think it was certainly okay for Jason to play that role for a month, but really because of his position on the board, he needs to. You really can't be both. Long term. So anyway, he's done those duties. So that's all I have under mine, Mike. Under the new business 8A.
Actually, before we go there,
sure.
Any questions to Mel from the city manager's point of view? Mel, just was wondering, paving. Have we got everything done that we're going to do? I heard some rumors about possibly North Main. Is that going to happen before June 30?
Actually, if you took a real close look at the budget, you'd find that the paving budget went over budget by $15,000 or $18,000. And one of the things, as I'm sure you learned, Bill, in talking to Jim, Jim does not like leaving 5 cents in that budget as it relates to road work. And so before the end of the year, one of the things, what we really intended to do was we did a lot of paving, late last summer. We spent whatever, 100,000, well, it wasn't that, $76,000, let's say. And Jim purposely left about, $25,000, maybe $30,000 in that budget, not knowing what the winter's gonna be like, because, Jim knows that, if you spend all of your money on paving and then you have a bad winter, you can't peel the pavement back up and sell it back to the company. You're done. So it is a good idea to maybe only spend 70% of your paving budget pre-winter, and if winter's normal, then you can spend the other 30% in the spring. And what happened is Jim and I tried to forecast as much work as we could possibly do before June 30th. And you have to estimate tonnages, and so we paved all of Victory Street and all of the paved portion of Hopkins Road. And when paving companies come and try to give you an estimate, it is an estimate, and it's because they really don't know how uneven a road is. When you get out there and you know that a road is like this, and if you're going to do a shim coat and a top coat, I don't want to say it's a total guess, but you really don't know how much tonnage it really takes to get the road back level, and then add the additional 1.5-inch top coat. The 1.5-inch top coat is easy to calculate. I got a slide rule on my desk that can do that, but there's no slide rule that can take care of the other. So what ended up happening is that both of those projects ended up being over budget from a tonnage standpoint. But again, you know, you can't stop in the middle. So in essence, we did get, I'm gonna say we got more work than we intended to do for the year. I mean, we ended up spending $118,000 out of a budget of only 100. All right, and of course, you know, how can we? And the Public Works still ended up with $100,000 underspent its budget. So that's that part. As far as this coming year, you know, I can tell you the focus was, you know, going into this year was to do work on North Main Street and Moncton Road. And the problem we're having with Moncton Road is really deals with culvert work down there. And, you know, we don't want to go paving up roads in one year and ripping them up the next. So, you know, that Moncton Road we won't do this. So it may be this year, it may flip the other direction. Instead of going 70-30, I don't want to say it's going to go 30-70, but it might go 50-50, so that we can do the any stormwater work related to Moncton Road. The other small section of road that we want to do, but we are waiting for there's an additional duplex that is going to be built at the end of Cataract Place, and I mean that road is just shot, totally shot, and because they built a duplex and there, which obviously bringing in a lot of heavy equipment, you know, took a bad road and made it worse. And there's another building that I've issued a permit for, and if they build that this summer and we can upgrade that road in the fall, you know, we'll do it. So those are really the three, you know, kind of the focus points. I don't know, Bill, if that sounds consistent with what
you know, Jim said that he was hoping to spend 41,000 on those two roads, and I saw that it was 44.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do about it?
Well, we knew we were going to go over, but you know, we're still in catch-up mode, and and we certainly go backwards when we. I'm not wild about overspending any line item in the budget, but you know, one of the things it went for road improvements, you know, and that's, you know, it should certainly.
It's a long-term investment.
Right.
Thank you, Bill. Item 8A.
Item 8A can be crossed out. This is one of those things that got cured in between Friday and Tuesday. So,
What happened?
well, it's just that the John Graham shelter in our rate structure for the pool, and I can't remember if I included a copy of our rates memo or not, to be honest with you, but anyway, the John Graham shelter, the shelter itself at 69 Main Street, for a decade or decades, the practice which the city council incorporated in the rate structure is we sell them a family pass that covers everybody who's living at that shelter throughout the entire season. And so you could have 15 different families being at the shelter, obviously not all at the same time, but throughout the summer. And so we issue that building a family pass, and they pay us $95 for that. What this letter was about is whether or not there would be considerations for their transitional home that's located on 3 East Street. As like I say, as it turned out, by the time the letter came in, and then I came back and I sent Elizabeth an email because the letter was unsigned. I wanted to try to get a little bit of history behind it, and she wrote back and said that the Congregational Church has already picked up the tab. Thank you very much. So anyway, we're set with that one. So.
Okay. Okay, next item, we had 2 choices. Mel has specific instructions to do certain things. He's not complying with them at this point in life. So I had asked Barb if she had any music she could play, and I was gonna tell everybody you had to get up, move around, and find a different chair. So we're gonna take a 5-minute break, and everybody stretch, because Mel's supposed to get up and walk every so often, and he's already violated it 3 times. budget, I want to capture the moment. Things that we'll be talking about, well, first off, is questions. Who attended, or did anyone attend the fishing derby this weekend?
I did.
Does anybody know how many? Does anybody know how many kids they had this year?
Oh, no, I
Wasn't
don't.
it possibly, what's she telling
I
me?
heard they were down a little bit.
Yeah,
They were-
300?
It was actually a little over 280.
Yeah, close to 300.
Does anybody, this is trivial.
Trivia.
Trivial.
Trivia.
Hey, I gotta make things a little exciting. Hey, you wanna talk numbers? This is the only way I know that I'm accurate. Anybody know how much in dollars that they put into prizes, or they had donated for prizes?
In the last 2 years, because they didn't have a derby last year, so
Yep.
people donated and you carried
Carried it over.
Yep.
forward. It was over $9,000.
Wow.
Bingo. Over $9,000. Had a lot of prizes, lots of kids, parents, the little problems here and there, but it was,
Yeah, you
you know,
get that with the
but
group.
yep,
So the sign got hit on McDonough Drive.
I didn't see
Yeah,
that.
somebody knocked it over and busted it
Oh,
on Saturday night.
But they said it was pretty good not having anybody spending the night. And that was much better.
yep,
Yeah.
So it's
Yep,
a couple
so-
of the comments I heard down there.
yep,
was
so
better.
we're learning. Next year, I'm sure they'll do another great job. Okay, I'd also like to let the council know, or anyone know, that I had the honor to attend a dedication ceremony for Sarah Gould of a baby picture of hers this Saturday at the Bixby Memorial Free Library, and deliver a proclamation in her honor. It was quite the event, and it was an event to help raise funds for the library. So that was a lot of fun. Anybody attend the Strawberry Festival or band concert other than Joe that played in the band
Yep.
concert?
I was there.
Did you get rained out?
No, we did, we were under the roof.
Well, as Peter can probably contest, both were good. The strawberry shortcake and the music. And thank you for all.
Cool enough that the ice cream didn't melt all over the place like it normally.
I was upset with my wife. She got one and she ate the whole thing. I was hoping I'd be able to help her.
By your
One of
own.
the biggest,
I did. I wanted to go back for seconds, but she wouldn't let me.
we've got some new members of the city band this year, so hopefully everybody will come and
Yep.
see the new and improved Vergennes City Band.
Everybody, they were very good last night. And again, as I said before, next month's meeting is July 17th, 7 PM here at the fire station. We will be doing a public hearing. I'm in strong hopes that we pass the ordinances or the planning commission regs that we've worked hard on, and that the other ones, the planning and the DRB people have worked hard on. I think that was a real good session that we had at the previous meeting. A lot of give and take, and you know, I think it's great. And like, if it's not 100% in somebody's mind, we always have a year or two down the road that we can make changes if we see something that's not working the way it really should. Okay. So we're gonna start talking budget, but there are certain things that we have to accomplish, or would like to accomplish. Number one, we'd like to talk about salary increases. Peter, I had sent you an email, not to throw you under the bus.
I'm under the bus.
Okay, then we won't go into depth about how far under the bus you are. So let's say, does anyone on the council want to speak up and offer a recommendation as to what we should make for an increase for city employees? Randy?
I would recommend that we do at least what the consumer price index is,
Which is?
which I have not to know. So I was just making a general statement towards that. I would say 3%.
Okay, anybody else?
I went online and I found some statistics on local government wages. And the average increase was about 2%. So I would say that should be at least the minimum, and I agree that it should at least be the CPI too.
but I'm not sure what that is either, so.
Well, we got our web-enabled phone. We can figure it out.
Any other comments?
Just for information purposes, I think the school contract has been announced, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And I think they got a 3.5% increase, but gave up some money for health insurance, which may bring it closer to 3.
Then I guess I would entertain someone to make a motion, something to the effect that we approve a 3% max increase with the control of the person supervising a department to use his or her discretion to set the actual rate the individual gets.
I make that motion, and she's writing what you're putting down, so.
Say that again, just so I understand, you're saying the department
I'm
head-
saying that there's a
discretion
max
department.
at top of 3%, but if Mel, as a supervisor of any of his employees, feel that somebody should get lesser than 3%, that is up to their discretion to make we did that last year, Bill. This isn't a giveaway. We still want to, if you're just chugging along, or if you're out front running, we'd like to try to award the people that are out front.
Yeah, I agree, except that if you do that, and if one person makes that decision, without some type of personnel policy and formal review policy, it gets to be very subjective, and there can be issues going on there. I'm speaking from my experience in Middlebury, which has a much more formal policy.
Isn't there a policy in place, though? Don't we have one of those here?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, we have personnel policy. I mean,
Yeah.
typically.
But, we've done reviews, and I've read what Joan just sent out, but we've never sat down. I just think that it seems like it's been kind of a lackadaisical process, to be frank with you, so far.
It has for years and years.
Could you accomplish the same sort of thing with, like a 2% across the board with an extra 1%?
Like merit pay or something.
For bonuses for demonstrated merit over
Sure.
the last year, so it accomplishes the same thing if you wanted to build in the supervisor. And if the supervisor wanted to go 3% across the board for everybody, could do that too.
I think that's a good step in the right direction,
Well,
sure.
isn't that
I
what you
think
were
that
saying
makes sense.
roundabout way?
It's is the cart before the horse, or
Right.
is the chicken before the egg? So it does the same thing,
Right.
but it's all in whether you present it in a positive manner or comes across in a negative manner. So you accomplish the same.
Yeah,
I'd say 2 + 1 sounds more positive.
yeah.
'Cause if
I
it
think
gives
I can live
someone
with that, and I
less
think
than
it's something we
3,
should
it
look
just
into in the
sounds
future
like,
as well, and maybe
I don't
try and
think you're
formalize the
worth
whole
it
process.
then. So if you say 2 + 1, it's more like a reward.
Mel, comments?
I was just gonna ask
Yeah.
Mel what he thinks it
Yep.
should be.
Well, one of the things is that I think that the 3 number is a good number. That is what the budget last year afforded to employees. I think that was certainly appreciated. I think that relative to the 2 + 1, and I really wish that I had. I have a favorites, which is my wage increase CPI, and let's say that it's 2.4. I wish that it was CPI plus merit. Instead of being 2 plus merit equals 3, if it was CPI plus merit equals 3, I would just feel better about that, Bill. Only that I really don't want any good, solid employee that we have going backwards.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay,
I agree.
and
Yeah.
under any circumstances, okay? And I just don't, I'm really sorry that I don't, because typically I would give you that number, that it's, like last year, I think I did a little research for the board, and I think the number was 2.7. It was whatever, and the council said 3, that we had up to 3 to deal with. So I would just feel more comfortable about that, because
Is there a way to make a motion where maybe,
See,
maybe
if I know what
the
it
base
is.
is the CPI, and then there may be a little bit of a cushion for merit pay or something?
You could make any sort of motion. We already have one,
Right, yeah.
but we don't have a second to that motion. I should have stalled things back.
CPI,
And
just for those information, CPI for.
Second.
All right, we have a second, and we'll
Let's discuss.
CPI for May was 1.7.
Yeah, I
For
was- I
wages
was
or,
thinking it was
yeah,
low.
which,
I was gonna say, I thought it was low.
Pardon?
I don't know which index you're
Is
using,
that-
because
is that
there's.
the full year CPI?
No, that's for May.
Yeah, so you have to go by the full year.
You gotta go by the full year.
The unadjusted 12 months ending May 2012
Oh,
was
12.
1.7.
And what's the,
What was it
which,
again?
1.7.
okay, is that wages or is that all
It's
consumer?
all items.
Okay,
Okay,
so
food, energy, everything, yep.
northeast?
That's from it's from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, United States Department of Labor, so it's nationwide, as far as I can tell.
That seems really low.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
some
Well,
people
it's
didn't
come
get
down quite a
raises
bit,
this year.
yeah.
A lot of people did.
A lot of the settlements that I've been seeing has been well into the twos, up to the three.
It was as high as according to this data, and I'm not an expert on it, but it was just, September 2011, it was 3.9, and it's come down since then.
Wow, yeah.
Andy?
And that's exactly what.
No,
you're
I'm just
looking
standing
at.
on my head, my fingers hurting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why don't we do CPI plus
All right.
merit up to
Up to
3%?
We have a
Not
motion,
plus,
we have a
up to
motion on the floor. Let's bring this to some sort of a head here as far as discussion.
Let me also
Yeah.
tell you, Mike, what that means in dollars. The
Yep.
spreadsheet is sitting there on my screen, to be honest with you. I have a spreadsheet that takes
Where's your
all
laptop?
of the, yeah, I know, maybe it's at home, because I'd have it right here. If you take the, Ray and I were chatting about this during the break. When we had the library employees here, our annual wages were about $850,000. Obviously, we don't set library wages, they're not a part of us whatsoever, so there's 100 that's out of there, and if you pull away, city council members, fire department, other people that aren't full-time employees, you pull those all away, you get down around the $680,000 to $690,000 of so-called base payroll, if you will, for all of our full-time employees. And if you were to take that base, multiply it times 3%, add VEMRs, add the retirement, add Social Security, add workers' compensation, add disability, all those things that are driven by base rates, at 3%, it requires a little over $21,000 adjustment, overall adjustment in the budget. All right, and to equate that into from a tax rate standpoint, every penny on the grand list generates $21,900. So basically, if an up to 3% wage adjustment was adopted by this board, then that's what I would do, is I would go back into the budget and make all of the various, adjustments in line items, about 25 line items that would be adjusted, and at the end of the day, the total of those adjustments in the general fund would be about $21,700 or
It's a
whatever.
penny.
It's a penny. It's a penny.
penny.
That's what that
Right.
part is about.
Okay.
You know, in this instance, that penny, there isn't money in the fund balance to cover it, okay? That's one of the things that's been a little easier in the past few years is that, we've been able to give raises without any adjustment in the tax rate because we had it in the fund balance, all right? Now, trust me, I wouldn't want my employees to misunderstand. I say this more about disclosure than trying to persuade you one way or the other. It does equate to, would equate to a 1 cent increase in our tax rate, which is currently at 60.07 cents. If this was incorporated, that number would bring that to 61.07 cents. And then any of the other adjustments that are still in front of you, obviously, you're gonna, move those numbers accordingly.
And am I correct in 1% on a $200,000 house is $2?
Correct. It's what?
Is $2.
Yeah.
A 1 cent tax increase for a $200,000 house would cost an extra $2 a year in taxes.
$2?
Yeah.
No, it'd be 20.
20?
well, 1 cent is
Okay, right,
1.5%.
yeah, you're right.
Mhm.
Yeah,
No, because it's
It's
it's 200,
It's $20.
$20.
Kevin,
So Mel, is the current tax rate for this budget flat relative to last year?
Is it current what?
Are you budgeting a flat tax rate from prior fiscal year to the current fiscal year? Or are you budgeting an increase in the tax rate,
you want to calculate, Bob?
or tax?
The budget that I put in front of the city council, without any wage increases or without any other adjustments, would have required a little bit of an increase in and of itself. Now, that's it, I got my going. A very little.
And that's mainly because of
fractional.
use
Right,
of
right, yeah,
the,
fractional.
use of the fund balance assisted.
Correct.
living, right?
Correct.
What is the motion?
We have a motion.
CPI plus,
No,
CPI plus merit of up to 3%.
that is the motion. I thought you said what I said. And that's not what I said. I said 3%.
Up to 3%.
To 3%.
Yeah, the
That's what I said.
CPI index.
Her motion,
Her motion does not match the
Her-
latest. Go ahead and read what you got.
The original that Ziggy said was approved 3% max, but Meller's supervisor could give less.
Okay.
So now I retract it and then redo
You,
it.
you can withdraw your motion.
Withdrawing it.
I withdraw my second.
Okay, so the motion's been withdrawn. The second has been withdrawn. And somebody want to make another stab at this motion?
I would make a motion that there would be a minimum 2% increase that can go to a maximum of 3%.
Wouldn't you rather have that C?
CBA?
I wish I knew what it was, because I mean, we may be disagreeing about something that there's really no disagreement on.
Well,
So, yeah.
Maybe I need to throw in the fact that it's CPI, but I don't want, if the CPI is below 2%, I think they should get at least 2%. That's the point.
If it's
So-
1.7,
if you
you're cutting hairs.
if you make it 2% or CPI, whichever is higher.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I got a motion.
Okay.
Iron it out before we,
Yeah.
on the motion, so that she gets it, so we only do this one more time.
Exactly what Peter said, sounds
Peter,
good.
Peter.
Okay, that's a minimum of 2% or CPI, whichever is higher,
Plus,
with a maximum
Minimum
of
of
3%.
Okay, that's Rennie's motion, that's,
Yeah, let Renee second that. He was on
and that's Rennie's motion. Who wants to second it?
I'll second.
Peter will second it. Now we'll open it for discussion. Kevin wants to throw something at the floor.
I would just recommend you define what CPI you're using, because there's a billion out there.
That's exactly, that's right. I mean, that's why I was wondering what he.
Because I can't look it up now, because I don't know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, I've always used CPI Boston.
But you're talking about wages
or
or
something.
There's an all items, and then there's a wage, and then there's a this, there's a million. of
One for the
them.
north.
What have you used historically?
You know, I wish highlight is my favorite button, and it talks right to me. I think that it's
What's-
northeast, I think
what
that
is-
it's northeast, I think it's northeast wages is what I use. And that way, it does take in, it takes in the Boston wage market.
It's like the Federal
I
Reserve.
think whatever you used
calculates
last year,
Mhm.
whatever you used last year is. But what do we have to do the motion? We're gonna change the motion?
No.
Just
I
add
don't.
it.
Okay.
Just leave
The
it.
CPI meaning whatever you used last year.
Okay.
And Rennie agrees with that?
And not lower than 2%, so.
Right.
so,
Okay. All right.
As the base, but he can go.
All right,
he
we
can go
have
up
a
to 3.
motion and a second, and does it require any further discussion?
No?
Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
Easier than I thought it was gonna be.
I'm glad that one's settled. And they get to watch us on TV tomorrow to find out. Okay, now we're gonna go into the budget. Well, what'd you throw at us? This is, I'm trying to think which one. This is not the one. That's current budget. Here's the last budget. That's the one I want. The moment everybody has been waiting for. All right, next one we're going to talk about, which should be real quick, is administration. Anybody have any question, discussion about the administration portion of the budget?
I do.
You're on.
Nothing huge.
Huh?
Building maintenance.
Yep.
Budget of 5,000, expenditures of just under 1,000.
Yep, yep,
Surplus there, gonna get carried forward.
correct.
There are things like the gutter system at City Hall, like the front steps, the caulking is gone. There are maintenance items that should be taken care of, and they should be taken care of each year so that it doesn't fall further behind. And I don't know if Mel was planning on taking care of those, but this is a case where, you know, we're not putting money where it's budgeted and it's just getting forward into the next year.
Agreed.
Right.
Absolutely.
You know, we'll figure it out and we'll
Right.
take care of it, but that's just, I mean, I wanna make sure that items like that are the ones that actually get spent because they're needed to maintain the
Now, is that
infrastructure.
something that Jimmy Lero would be responsible to make happen?
It
or-
would be joint,
Okay.
Jimmy and I, it's, you know.
Okay. I just didn't know where that responsibility lied.
Yeah.
It's like the
it's
orange
joint.
circles on the sidewalk in front of City Hall. Not a
Yeah.
good impression for visitors. You know, they should be repaired or replaced, one or the other, so.
Mike, I've got a question about just about process. We're kind of going section by section. And I want to propose an increase in a couple of places, which might, if the group felt the budget needed to be balanced by reducing something else, it kind of goes together, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Not that I don't have a
Is it something
suggestion
that
of,
we
I don't have
already
a suggestion of
discussed?
reducing.
That we've already more or less discussed and agreed that it was okay?
No.
Fire department, we've already talked about.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
the places where I would, if the group felt that they wanted to go with the increases I'm talking about, but in terms of the tax rate, wanted to subtract something from somewhere else, the places where I would
Give us a page number.
focus would be on the police department and the public works department as places where the money could come from if necessary. I don't think it's necessary to reduce anything, but that's,
Okay,
those are my
okay.
thoughts, but it kind of depends upon whether the council feels like they want to do something with the Opera House or increase the partnership.
We did talk about the public works and
Is that done?
at the previous one and
Yeah.
didn't have any questions. Everything was okay at that time.
Okay, that's fine.
And we could still make changes because we haven't locked in on the budget yet, so.
Okay, so even though we've gone through an item, I mean,
Yep, we can go
an
back.
appropriation,
Yep.
we can, okay.
We
all
have
right.
we have not passed the budget as a whole.
Okay, then.
So we can do it.
And I'll hold off until we get to
Sure.
that section where this.
Okay,
I still have a question about our administration. I still am not clear. You had indicated, Mel, that you had included items in the administration budget for heating and upkeep of the Opera House. I still don't have a good handle on how much you think that may be. I noticed that in the document that Eileen sent out, that some towns incorporate that in their budget. And you had indicated that that's something that you had budgeted for. And in light of the $10,000 request, just curious if you know.
Yeah, I do not have a specific list for you, Joe, but I really, one of the things, if you look under building maintenance, Bill is absolutely correct. We budgeted $5,000, spent $1,600 or $1,700, in essence left $3,400 on the table. And so how am I dealing with that? Well, one of those things, there was some reasons behind the 5,000, and those reasons haven't gone anywhere, and so that's part of the reason about my proposed budget of increasing City Hall maintenance from 5,000 to 7,500. That's part of the reason. The other part of the reason is, and although I don't have a very specific list, as it relates to the Opera House, and this is, to me, totally separate discussion from their request, totally separate. And that deals with is that, for instance, you know, looking at City Hall, you know, administration uses administration, police use the downstairs, the upstairs, we have a lease with the Opera House. And there are in my opinion, there are clearly items of need in the Opera House that are generally landlord responsibilities. You know, I think about that no differently than if I own an apartment building with residents in it. And you're basically, if you own an apartment building, carpeting is gonna wear out. And you typically don't go, like if a tenant leaves and you get a new tenant, you can't back bill the tenant that left, and it's pretty hard to collect it from the new tenant. And so typically those kinds of longer term expenses are the landlord's responsibility. So therefore, let's say that the floor of the Opera House needs to be refinished, sanded and refinished. My feeling is I personally can draw a parallel between refinishing the Opera House floor and replacing carpet in an apartment building. That's me, all right? And I that would be, you know, I would just do it, or I'd bring it to the city council. That's my feeling. I also know that there on occasion has been problems of substandard electricity in the Opera House. Now, I was gonna pick on Ziggy, I can't think of another example. You know, Ziggy owns a building with multiple uses in it, and if one of her tenants has some real special needs, you know, I can see Ziggy saying, well, you know, that's a real special need, and as a tenant, that's a leasehold improvement that the tenant's gonna have to pay for. In the case of the upstate Opera House, let's say that, and I know that this isn't the case, but I'm using this just an example. Let's say that every circuit is a 15 amp circuit, all right? You can't even plug a decent sized fan into it without tripping the breaker. I tend to feel that's a landlord responsibility. So I don't have that list. I don't have a good list, but that's really where I'm coming from. And I think that there are some landlord items that we should be paying for as the landlord, even though they don't pay us any rent. I separate that from the issue.
Understood. Well, maybe, I don't know who I should address. What about utilities? Who pays utilities up there?
The utilities, let's talk about heat first. First off, we have and I'm happy to share this with anybody. It's all public record. We have a lease with the Opera House. It's a lease that last one I think Rennie put together. It's
Greg Clark was on it.
2003 or 4 or 5, whenever it was done. It's a quick reading of it looks like it's a 25-year lease. It's actually a 50-year lease. It's a 25 with a 25-year renewal at the option of the tenant. So it really, in all practicality, it's really a 50-year lease. The article that was approved by the voters says 25. Bothers me a little bit, but anyway, that's just the way it is. May very well have been an oversight that the article didn't, in my opinion, absolutely match the lease itself. I mean, I wish it absolutely matched, because I hate those things, and I just hate them. All right. So anyway, in 13 years or whenever that is, you know, I won't be here. Somebody's gonna be dealing with it. Okay. Okay. Now, getting that lease that I'm talking about makes reference to utilities, and I'd be happy to share it with anybody. But relative to fuel oil, the city buys the first 1,300 gallons every year. And that gets burned up, and once those 1,300 gallons are burned up, every gallon thereafter is billed to the Opera House under a separate account. All right. Now, if people are wondering, you know, where the $1,300 come from, it was actually $1,300 gallons. Yeah, we only wish.
Yeah.
Actually, you know, where the 1,300 gallons came from was before the Opera House became used. Given the fact that the furnace needed to be rebuilt, because the furnace that was down there only could heat downstairs, it was only sufficient. So the furnace needed to be totally replaced. And the most efficient way to heat City Hall is to have one furnace heating the entire facility. And so that's what we did. And I did 3 years worth of research on usage, and it worked out to it was in a range of 1,000 gallons to 1,200 gallons, and instead of fighting about it, we just settled on 1,300. We buy the first 1,300 gallons. It's been that way since 1996, whenever it was. That's that. So that's a fuel oil part. The electricity.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
The gallonage was done on the old boiler, not the new boiler?
The gallonage was done on the old boiler. That's correct.
One of the things that I would ask you to do later is, if we got any time on the new boiler, maybe if there's enough time on it to figure out an average there. Is it like 2 years?
What's that?
On the new boiler, when did the new boiler go in, and how many gallons can we look at how many gallons we've?
Well, before the upstairs could even be heated, the newer boiler, this newer boiler had to be installed. So, there's a new nozzle, there's a new whatever, but we both use the new.
Okay, I know, I realize, but I'm wondering now that we're heating all the space, and we've got something that's supposed to be more efficient. Is what are we using gallonage now total to see maybe what the number is now, if it might have skewed the numbers either way.
Well, we certainly have that. We know how many gallons we're currently using. The problem is that in 1990, the winter of 1994, 1995, which was the last winter that the Opera House was cold, okay? Fuel oil only heated the downstairs, okay? So, and that particular year, 94, 95, the bill was $995. The rate, I know people can say, you've got to be kidding me. The cost per gallon during that period of time ranged between 84 cents and 91 cents. I'm going to say 80% of the time it was 91 cents. So you use any number you want. So basically, if it was 91 cents and we spent $995, then obviously we used about 1,100 gallons that year. And let's say that the following year we used 1,200. Basically, that 1,300 gallons basically assures that the Opera House is certainly not subsidizing the city. That's one of the things that I would also wanted to do if we buy more, let's say that the real number was 1,180 gallons, but we never know really how cold it's going to be, and it was only a 3-year study. That was the number that we agreed upon, and that 1,300 gallons has just carried over since 1995. So that's the fuel oil story, Joe. The electricity, there's actually 3 bills. Totally. You get 2, I get 1, right?
Well, we get one, ours is integrated into one.
Oh, it is, okay.
Yeah.
So the building isn't perfectly separated, right, from where each electrical zone is from, but it's pretty good. I think that the Opera House bill might cover a few light bulbs down in the bathroom, and we cover a few light bulbs upstairs. It's close enough. So that's how that's done.
I've never heard you say it's close enough, Mel.
I know. In this particular instance, it was close enough. So anyway, that's how that part goes. Sewer, we don't charge ourselves. We don't collect any rent. That's how the fuel and electricity's done. They don't pay any sewer bill, nor do we really. Water bill. Water bill is ours, and if the building uses more than 36,000 gallons in a quarter, we would pay that bill. Once in a while, it does go over. We pay that bill. Insurance, there was a time in the prior lease, I'm trying to think, Rennie, yours, 2005 is when you probably did the new lease? 2005, 6, 5? The previous lease, which was a much shorter term, called for whereby the Opera House had to reimburse the city 10% of the insurance, the property insurance bill. The new lease does not require that. They actually paid it for 3 years until I caught it. All right, and that they were paying us money that they really didn't owe us, so we pay the property insurance bill. There's no reimbursement from them to us. We provide internet to the Opera House. It's no big deal. I mean, we have internet anyway. We must have enough bandwidth, or we'd be fighting about it. So they don't have to buy. They don't have to pay an internet bill because they use ours. Telephone, we pay the telephone bill, and we do bill you for that. So that's how it works, I think.
Yeah,
Okay.
I just want to speak to the fuel, as I understand it, Mel, just to clarify for Mike, that currently there's no distinction in the system to sort of really know exactly how much the Opera House uses versus how much the city uses on this system.
That's correct.
It's a full system, so there's no, I mean, we could say we use, as a total building, X number of gallons each year now, but we don't know, specifically speaking, how much of it goes towards the city.
So how much over the 1,300, do you know how much over that 1,300?
I don't know off the top of my head what that, I mean, again, it was about 5,000, 5,600 last year, and I don't remember what
Dollars
the
or
gallon
gallons?
amount was.
Okay, so that was dollars.
That was, we paid about $5,600 last year.
So
It's probably
if-
gonna be about 5,000 this
So
year.
if it was $6,000 at $3 a gallon, that's 2,000 gallons. So we buy 1,300, they buy 2,000 roughly.
You got $3 a gallon?
When I pre-buy,
Z, you had something.
I know, back to the maintenance on the Opera House. Are we talking about stage lights or anything like that, or just the basics for electricity coming in and sanding the floor and things like that, repairing windows and walls like that, correct?
I'm just talking about me personally, Zig. I think that the stage lighting is theirs.
Okay.
It is theirs. It's not the city's, it's theirs. And so
Right.
therefore I wouldn't feel that, that the city would be maintaining somebody else's.
Well, that's for example.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a trade fixture. It's
Right.
theirs.
Yeah, all right.
Do you know,
Go
I
ahead.
just wanted to speak also, Ziggy, to that for insurance. You know, Mel's talking about property insurance. We do carry insurance on a variety of sort of renters insurance, including our air handling system, including our stage lighting system. So we do carry insurance on on that property that is it's sort of one of those weird things where it's part of the building, but we carry insurance on it because it's a system that we put in. So that's another another one of those weird things.
Works very similar to the library. The city owns the library, and we insure the library. However, the library reimburses us 100% of the insurance premium for that, and they have a separate policy. They have a separate policy for their personal property, if you will, or business property.
in
Joe.
regards to electricity, with the air conditioning system in, do you know approximately?
So our
What does it
our electricity is not bad. Our electricity ranges from about $60 when not air handling to about $150 a month when the air handling's on. So obviously that's the big draw is the air handling system. From a lighting standpoint, I don't turn lights on very often, so and we don't have much electrical draw for standard times. So.
Since we're talking about the Opera House, I think I want to take this opportunity to talk about the things that I mentioned before that we were going to wait on.
One thing that I would ask is, at this point, do we have anybody that needs to make any sort of disclosures? Are they members of the Opera House? And/or?
I'm a member.
I'm a
I'm
member.
a business member.
I'm a member and a business member. I'm a personal member.
Okay, just disclose
I
it.
think I'm a member too.
Okay.
I'm a member too, right, Allison? Yes, you made me.
They are responsible to disclose.
Yep.
That way, if there's any questions, there's no conflict of interest.
I'm a member.
I have a suggestion on funding, actually, both the partnership and the Opera House. And it's been discussed in the past, never went in that direction. I do feel that both of those entities should get some funding from the city. The Opera House, I think, was the genesis of the revitalization of Vergennes. It is an economic catalyst to the downtown, and many cities across the country support those kinds of things, have we're not big enough to have a separate department to make sure that those things occur, but we're lucky. The Opera House puts Vergennes on the map. Lots of people know about Vergennes because of the Opera House. So I think we should be supporting it in some fashion. Same thing with the partnership. Many cities that are larger can afford to have a community development department. We can't. The Vergennes partnership is that, basically. And we have to have it because of the downtown designation. So it's an important entity for us to have. That being said, that I think that in some way we should be supporting both of them. My suggestion is to use the water tower fund as the funding mechanism. I know, and I don't remember the original wording with the water tower fund. I know it had to do with downtown improvement, supporting downtown improvement. I'm not sure how elaborate that is, but the council can make it as elaborate as it wants to. And over the years, at least through my years, and I'm not sure with Mal's, we've resisted trying to use it for much other than direct capital improvements because we didn't want the fund to be rated, quite frankly. But that fund is over $100,000 a year, right?
It's about 100 now.
Yeah. And I think there's more than enough money in there to fund continued capital improvement. Both of these organizations are, I consider, improving downtown and keeping it vital. And I don't see any problem with taking the money, whatever the money may be, out of the tower fund and not putting it on the taxpayer at all, including the $5,000 that's already in there for the partnership, and take it out and just take it out of one place. That fund is more than adequate to do it. There may be some time in the future where the fund begins to peter down, because ultimately in the future, there won't be cell towers, they'll all be satellite. So there may not be money coming in, but I think that's a way to find some money for the organizations that need our support, but not necessarily put the burden on the taxpayer. That's my suggestion.
Is this a continued effort or a 1 year effort?
I would say it would be a continued effort. I mean, that's where it comes from.
What happens, like you say, when eventually the tower's money is gone, then what?
We'll have to cross that bridge when we come to it, and probably none of us will be around for it.
Still.
I agree with Rennie, and I was just, these questions basically are just trying to figure out, kind of in my mind, how to best work this out. I don't know if we need to, the majority of or quite a few of the other municipalities, cover utilities in some way. We don't need to rewrite the lease or anything, but I was just trying to get a handle maybe on what the Opera House's portion of those utilities are. I think Kevin made a great economic argument, and there are certainly other arguments in favor of support of these organizations, and I would think, the our responsibility is to take the will of the people and turn it into a budget or a law or whatever. These are two organizations that, I'd put money on the table that our citizens are in favor of supporting, having the city support, whether it's through, and through whatever means. I mean, Randy, you have a much better handle on, and Mel as well, the multitude of funds where money could come from. But no matter where it comes from, in my opinion, I think that the council really ought to support these organizations.
Mel, am I correct in saying if the money comes out of the water tower fund, it doesn't affect the budget, so it's a moot point. We can either say that it could happen and we can move on and keep going on the budget side of things and try to bring that to a draw. I
think if the
whatever amount comes.
I mean, if a majority of the city council wants the $5,000 partnership allocation to be removed from this budget, but would be funded
with other source of money, that's fine. I think one of the things, Rennie, to give a little bit of history on the tower fund, and for whatever reason, it's the tower fund has been handled far less formally than some of the other funds that we have. As you know, as you all know, the watershed fund has a very specific policy as to what happens to the earnings and the method. The Ray Davison fund, same thing, a very specific policy. The Donnelly fund has not much of a policy at all. Joe and I have talked about, that's one that, even though it's not a lot of money, it probably deserves the same level of attention as the Davison or the watershed. The water tower fund is, even if the Donnelly fund is informal, the water tower is even less informal. I mean, it really is. I can tell you, I can remember just like it was yesterday, I negotiated the first lease with what is now AT&T. There was a lot of discussion about whether or not we needed to paint the water tower. That seemed to be the focus, about whether or not to paint it. Some people felt it was an eyesore, we ought to tear it down. Some people said we should paint it. Some people said, get as much money as you can possibly get out of that freaking water tower. We need it. And that's where we landed. And one of the things is that very quickly, I think Steve Bushy was a member of the city council, and he felt that it was very important that if the water tower is going to stay up there and we're going to receive money, we should be doing public improvements with those dollars. So if anybody complained about how ugly the tower was, the city could say, but look at what, okay, I don't know if I agree with you or not, but look what the revenue stream bought us. Okay, so the policy at that time was that the proceeds would not win the general fund and would be used for, I think it might have said visible, but it was about public improvements. Over the years, it's been used for all kinds of things. I think the city got forced to use it over Velco. I mean, it was really
Yep, we did use it for
it
Velco,
was-
because we
Because
didn't
we didn't
have
have any
any
money.
attorney
Right.
fees, yeah, we
So
were
it-
paying big time.
because there isn't a real formal policy and a formal schedule of dealing with the money, it's been very informal, and it's totally up to the city council, and if the city council, kind of like, if you think about the watershed policy, that policy says, the current policy says the first $6,000 goes to the Vergennes swimming pool, and then the other amount of money gets allocated goes into this facilities maintenance reserve fund. You could have a very similar policy for the water tower. The first X amount of dollars goes to such and such purposes, and the balance is used for other. It's totally your call.
What are the term of these leases currently? Just I mean, I agree with Rennie that ultimately, there's gonna be no revenue stream from there. But it may be 10 years, it may be 20 years, I don't know.
There's 4 companies, Bill, obviously 4 separate leases. They all are similarly structured. They're 5-year leases with 4 5-year renewals generally. And I built the city council not that long ago, a couple of years ago. I built a color-coded chart that could show that if every tenant stayed through the end of their term, including their renewals, and then left. I created this color-coded spreadsheet that showed you how that would phase out. I did that for one of the reasons I was just kind of curious myself. I just had Leslie kind of put that together. And the other reason is somebody came along and wanted to buy all of those rights to us. That's the real reason why I did it. And they threw, the guy didn't realize I was a mathematician, and so he threw some $540,000, and that's like spitting in somebody's face. And I told him that too. So anyway, it's it is possible that they wouldn't renew. I mean, that's the poker game that is involved with these things. But So I know I can pull that spreadsheet up.
I'd love to see it.
But basically, at the end of the day, it's 100, if all 4 leases, it equals about $100,000. They all have their own escalators, and the escalators range from 3 to 6. We have a 6% escalator in a couple of them, and it's very attractive. I gotta give Randy Friday credit on a couple of those babies, because those have, he did better than I did with them. So, it's very lucrative. And that 100, it's gonna turn into 120 unless we lose anybody.
Okay, here.
In terms of the budget discussion, personally, I would prefer to get those 2 issues settled if we're going to fund them. In other words, if we're not gonna fund them outside of the budget, and I don't wanna agree with the budget until
Understood.
so just
That's where
sequentially,
I was trying to take this.
maybe we need to
is
digress
I'm
and
going-
make that vote.
I'm gonna take it to a vote. I'm gonna ask for
Okay.
a motion, and I wanna handle them separately,
Okay,
okay? And so I would entertain someone to make a motion, on if and you, whatever your motion is, support for the Opera House. So can I have that from someone?
Well, I guess since I'm the one that made the recommendation, I guess I ought to make the motion that any funding that would go to the Opera House would come out of the Water Tower Fund.
And I would ask an amount, because we gotta get to that line,
Okay.
okay?
Then I would say $10,000.
We have a
Second that.
motion and a second.
Yep.
For $10,000 support to the Friends of the Vergennes Opera House. And a motion was made by Rennie, and Peter got it out first, to second it. Randy?
Well, I'd like to put some requirements on this.
Oh, wait, we're not finished, we're gonna
Yeah,
discuss. it.
okay,
Well-
now, that's where we're going. We're into discussion now. Okay. We got a motion and a second. Let's open it up for discussion. Go
I
ahead.
thought we were there.
Yeah, we are.
Okay. I would like to say that we at least do it for 2 years, and then we'll see where they are in 2 years. If we help them for 2 years, they should be able to get onto their feet, hopefully, and carry on with less funding from the city. They were supposed, originally, when this was set up, I believe, it was supposed to be a self-funding organization.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to see that.
Okay.
I'm hesitant without putting some sort of, I hate to say this, but what have you done for me lately? If we're giving you money, I want to see something coming back.
That's fair to mention. Ziggy, did you have something else you want to offer?
Yes, I did go to that first meeting when they wanted to open the Opera House, and I remember that meeting, and that's why that's still in my head, and a lot of it was not gonna cost the city of Vergennes at the time anything.
Mhm.
And I understand that times are tough, and I'm not against the Opera House, but I think, as I've been out seeing people, I've gotten feel on different things, and I just feel that something like this, but maybe what Randy has suggested is that we ought to put this to the vote to the people and let them decide. Because I talked to a lot of people, some of them don't even go to the Opera House, other people say they can't afford to go, and some people enjoy it and they do go. So you've got a mix of people that I've come across, so I'm just giving you my experience.
Okay.
All right, and maybe something with what Randy's saying, but right now, I think maybe the people ought to decide.
Unfortunately, we're not in a position to actually put that to the voters at this time. We need to try to make a decision one way or the other. Either we could let this pass on its own merit and see where it stands, or see if Rennie would be willing to amend it with a stipulation of the 2-year time frame.
Well, I didn't put any time frame on it, and actually, quite frankly, I think if it was funded in the budget, it would come up annually.
Right, that's my opinion as well.
So if it's coming out of the Water Tower Fund, and it comes up annually, I mean, it may end up,
Okay.
it may end up being an enduring thing. That would be my expectation, but as far as looking at it, whether we're gonna make that expenditure, I think it's just like, if it's in the budget, we look at it every year. We see what the situation is.
That was gonna be my point. That we look at the budget line by line, we make decisions, and I had the exact same opinion.
Okay, so
we would review it yearly.
It satisfied my,
it satisfied your requirement or stipulation. Any other discussion or comments or
You know,
questions? Mr.
I'll
Bell?
comment on each of them. I mean, I was involved in the partnership for many years, as you all know. And I was on the board of the Opera House for about 2 years, quite a while ago. And it's hard because, you know, this matching dollar for dollar, you know, benefit cost thing is very difficult because there is no direct correlation. But I think in the last, 10, 12, 14 years, like Rennie said, that these, the Opera House as a physical performance space and so on in the organization have done some great things for Vergennes. And I think the partnership, not so much physically, but in terms of just the community and raising awareness about Vergennes has done a great thing as well. And I think if as long as this fund is there and it's a way to do it, I think I would support that funding source.
Okay.
And I would certainly support each organization.
Okay, Joe?
Just one other comment. I certainly respect Ziggy's point of view, but there are lots of quality of life items in our budget that we contribute money to, parks, the library, that don't necessarily give us a direct economic return, that I think bring great value to the city.
Mm-hmm. And now we may have some economic return now that we have the Wi-Fi and some of the other stuff that's down in the library. So there is, I don't think we've seen the impact yet, or it's been minor, but once they start coming in and start using the Wi-Fi that's through the library in the city now, I think, like I said, it may not be measurable at this point, but you will see it is there. I think that is there. So, got a motion and a second. Does anybody need to hear the motion as, no? Then I will ask for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions?
I don't know where Ziggy voted.
Did you vote?
No, I didn't.
Okay, you're abstaining.
She actually can't abstain. She's got to vote yes or no,
Yes.
unless she has unless
I just
she
feel
has
that, I don't know, I just feel uneasy on this. And I'm not that I don't want to say no, but I really don't want to say yes, because I can see how things go down the road in the past. All right, but we can review this every year,
Yeah?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
and that 10,000 could go up, it could go down.
right.
All right, then I'll vote yes.
Okay, so it's unanimous. Now, we'll take and ask a recommendation for the partnership. Anyone care to make a motion on that?
I'll go ahead and make the motion on this one.
Okay.
I'll take Rennie off the hook on this. I'll make a motion that we allot the Vergennes partnership $9,000 total, removing $5,000 from the budget to be totally funded by the water tower on an annual basis with a look back.
Define look back.
Well, it's the same thing.
Review.
Anything that comes up.
Which, all right, review, all right.
Do I have a second?
Second.
That was Rennie? Okay, Rennie seconded. Open it for discussion. Hearing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Opposed? Unanimous. Okay, dealt with that part. Now, due to the lateness of the hour, we need to try to keep things moving on the rest of the budget. Almost getting up for another stand-up time for you there, Bobby.
Yeah, okay.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm all right.
Yes.
He's not gonna be able to stand up.
I'm gonna have a bum knee, and this is gonna be his wife kicking me if I don't, so I don't want that.
Yeah, I may have to stand up in a
Okay,
minute.
the only thing that I don't think that we really have discussed, and council, correct me if I'm wrong, police department, is that the only one that we have missed?
I think so.
Okay,
Yeah, we haven't discussed
Now,
it.
I do have a statement. We are putting $5,000 back into
the budget?
the budget. So that it's gonna help us. I guess, yeah, it's gonna help us.
It's gonna help us, but
We still
until
spent it.
Mel does the numbers, we can say, we can set the tax rate, not really know what the thing is,
Well,
but you're gonna have to do the math, once you get
Yeah.
back to really confirm what the rate is.
It's really, it is pretty simple, because, we all know that a penny on the tax rate raises, $21,900, and basically, at the end of the day, in part, I can tell you that, this budget, based on the way that I presented it, needed a fund balance carryover of $121,000. I can guarantee you that there's 119, and I think
We
that
just got five.
there's gonna be more. So like I think the question is whether or not the tax rate needs to go up a full penny or not. That's really where you're at, because really, if the fund balance, if the fund balance is more than $121,000, and if the wage adjustment is a penny, that $5,000 represents a quarter of a cent. Okay, that's how finely we're starting to split hairs with this thing. So I can tell you that if there is no increase in the tax rate, you don't have a balanced budget. All right, and so if with those changes that we've talked about, you could have if you had an increase of 3/4 of a cent, you will have a balanced budget using approximately $120,000, that $120,000 fund balance.
Are we splitting hairs here, Mel, or are we trying to get too close to the target? Is it safer to go slightly higher? We're talking $20 on a $200,000 house. And with all due respect to the elderly and the fixed income, I'm not far from there, but
If we went 1 cent on the tax
if
rate.
we went up a penny on the tax rate, I'll ask for a consensus. At this point,
Question.
not
This
a-
carryover, the way this budget is presented, will disappear.
That's right.
Which means next year, you're gonna be looking at wage increases, which could be another penny. You could be looking at other increases. And I would rather be, I think it's amazing that the rate hasn't changed in 5 years, frankly. I mean, I would have rather gone up a little bit each year and been able to do more sidewalks. But at some point, the surplus ends, and I think I would certainly support a penny. In maybe, and probably not more than that, but I think that, we need to start building to the future, as opposed to just,
Well, I can tell you,
cutting everything.
I can tell you, Bill, that the budget that the city council adopted for the current year absolutely, sincerely predicted that we would end the year with nothing. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, and it was really,
And we had a great winter.
Mother Nature gave us $118,000, okay? So
We may not be
this,
so friendly
we're
next year.
really, it's kind of, we're doing it again, and, it's not, it's not fun starting with zero. Right, it's not fun, all right, right? It makes us breathe a lot easier to start the year with 118. But I'll tell you, the minute that you adopt a rate using that 118, it's gone. It really is gone. And the only way that you can regain it through the year is by finding other sources of revenue, or getting lucky with the weather, or really budgeting stuff and not buying stuff.
Well,
And that's really, and that's
personnel, like I know that we lost some hours at City Hall. Les Champagne retired and was
Absolutely.
replaced.
Right.
Things are getting really tight, I think, and a lot of the employees are going above and beyond.
Yep.
But at some point, even that has to be reinvestigated
Right.
and so on. And I just think that we need to be aware of that.
Just a minute. We used to have money from Northland Job Corps, and we chewed that down at a respectable rate. And after that, we kind of hit sticker shock. And I wrote an article and put it in the city voice this last time, stating that we need to start adjusting, however so slightly, to avoid sticker shock, because that infamous double whammy winter hits us and whatever else hits us, we're gonna sink. We've got people like Winooski, mayor, emailing every mayor in the state asking, hey, what are you doing for other means of revenue? It's like, there's really not much you can do unless you have a local tax. And I think everybody on the council agrees, we don't want that, because that's a little bit of an edge to help draw people into the city, but they don't have to worry about that extra percentage. So that was a point of discussion on, revenue. If we had to do it, we could go there, but I think we need to take a little slight step up.
Yeah, one of the things, Bill. Sorry, go ahead.
I got Randy there.
Well, I guess, I hate to say this, but would it be better to do 2 cents on the tax rate this year, which would preserve some of that fund balance for as a rainy day type situation, and if God, we have another great winter where we're not getting hammered, then we take a little bit, and try to tuck a little of that away, because we are going to have expenses that are coming up.
I didn't see who went first, Mel or Peter.
Well, the reality of this budget, as you look at it, we added a penny for increases, okay? The Public Works Department has gone up a half a penny. Administration has gone up a third of a penny. The Police Department has gone up more than 2 cents. I mean, there's built into this budget almost 4 cents of increases just to stay level with the budget. Again, without dipping into that fund balance, which I tend to agree, you need a reserve there. And I'm not suggesting a 4 cent increase, but I'm saying that this budget, with the increases that are in it, if we don't change anything, I mean, 2 cents in the police department. I mean, they're already 29% of the budget, which is an incredible amount for a town our size, I think. And, Public Works, a half a cent, it isn't all that much considering, the increase in cost and things like that, but, so I guess what I'm saying is that this budget really does need an increase in the tax rate. I know that's gonna burst your perfect record or whatever, but, it's not. Anyway.
We've been living on borrowed time with that.
I know that, yeah. And again, the sticker shock concept, I mean, if you hold off on this and then next year all of a sudden it's like 5 cents.
Well, I mean, I can tell you that it's actually more than 5, not a lot more than 5, but basically, if we're gonna use the entire fund balance, even with a 1 cent increase in the tax rate, we're gonna use that entire fund balance. I can tell you that 365 days from today will not be the fun we're having tonight, all right? Because if you go into that discussion with trying to hold the tax rate, there's no revenue stream to pick up that 118. You can only do it with cuts, all right? And that's what it equals. Every penny is 20 grand. So you're talking about 6 cents. So you're talking about a 10% increase in your tax rate. Now I think in part that's where Randy's coming from. He really, I can tell, he doesn't want to talk about a 10% increase in the tax rate, all right?
No.
I think he'd feel.
And not be an elected official, right?
Even though it's just
but he
being
might feel okay
humanitarian.
with 2 cents and then 4 or something. I will tell you, whether or not you go up a penny or whether or not you go up 2, I can, and I'm happy living. I'm happy with 2. I mean, we'll just deal with it. But I can tell you, and obviously at 20 after 9 is not the time to begin talking about local option taxes, but, I can tell you, all of the low-lying fruit is gone, Bill, okay?
Yeah,
There's, it's, and, we made a conscious decision that we could stretch the public works a little further by pulling Lyle away from sewer completely and not replacing Les and hiring a part-time person in the summer, okay? Those kinds of, it is a reduction in labor, all right? And the net result was $60,000 or $70,000, all right? And you can only do that once. Once you make a decision and produce that savings, you can't, that fruit has been plucked and eaten, all right? You're done. And there really isn't anything left
fat
in
in there at all.
What about the police department? I mean, can we do anything there, or?
Well,
Actually, I show a half a penny in the police department going up. If it's $11,000.
Well, he's talking about what it is actually right now.
The police thing, we talked about it, not the last meeting, but it wasn't here. One of the things is that, I think that the policy, if you will, of the city council is to have a police department with, in essence, as much coverage as we can afford. And even knowing that this budget does not afford 24-hour-a-day on-duty coverage, this is, if you cut labor from the police department, you're cutting coverage. It's that simple. You can't have volunteers going out and taking duty. You're really cutting coverage.
And I'm getting letters. I just got a letter that I meant to bring to you tonight, a complaint about speeders and whatnot in an area. And they've talked to George and trying to find time. It's our shifts, 6 in the morning till 9 in the morning. No, the coverage isn't out there, so.
And I have to say about the police department, it has always been a difficulty relative to
Right.
funding it. It has always been.
I know.
You remember the ones that have been around all the years. Every year it was a struggle, and there's a certain amount of unpredictable expenditure because of how much overtime that they might have to use for certain things, and that's just the nature of the beast.
Randy?
I can see that, according to this budget report, is that an actual for the year-to-date?
Which one are you looking at?
The one you handed out?
Yeah, that is as of today.
Okay, it says 108% of their projected, but it will be 100% here in a couple of days.
Yeah.
Is that reflected in the new budget?
Well, I can tell you that, police department budget, which is, quite different than public works, if you look at the percentage of the public works budget that's labor versus non-labor, it's kind of like a school budget is basically salaries. That's pretty much what it is. Police department is kind of the same way. It's very heavy on the salary side, and it's the secret, as Rennie was touching upon, it's really about managing that labor. It's about minimizing overtime and controlling that. And I can tell you, I told everybody, the first half of the year, there was some events that occurred, but also, and I think George would admit it as well, is that he could have done a little better job, managing labor that first half of the year. And I can tell you the second half of the year, it was much better managed. And I think that that's what we have to do, because if we waste labor cost, that removes coverage, and that's not where our focus should be. Coverage, training and coverage, training and coverage. That's what the role of the police department should be.
So I guess my question is they were 500, as of this point, they're $530,000 in change.
Yep.
And you're proposing $499 in change. I mean, I honestly believe that we're gonna hit the 530 again.
Well,
Well, this is just for now. We got June will be coming in July. Remember that? So we may need more.
Yeah. One of the things is we're not buying a cruiser this year, Randy, so there's a little bit of a chunk there.
I'm not trying to bash George, I just wanna get an idea, if there is a way of managing this monster. You know, it is a monster, it's just, it eats capital, and you gotta figure out the best way to manage it. I mean, this is far best police department that I think I've seen in this city at this time. I really do. So, is this $499 a realistic number?
Well, obviously, when we do the wage adjustment, it'll go over the $500,000 mark, but I don't think that's really what your point is. Is it realistic? I can tell you that's the line I'm drawing in the sand, and let me just tell you, George, if he was here, I don't want to put words in George's mouth, but I will tell you that George is to some degree embarrassed about where the end of the year is coming from, because he knows that this is really his budget. And also, what I tell him is that no different than Public Works, Jimmy Lero does not control the weather, all right? And police can do anything they want. They really don't control all crime, but they have to respond to all crime. So there's parts of this that are really out of his control. But the parts that he is in control, you really need to control it. And I'm not going to guarantee anybody anything, because we aren't in complete control. But I can assure you that it won't be lack of effort, Randy, I'm not going to guarantee that we won't go over budget, but it won't be because of a lack of effort. It will be to try to keep ourselves on budget right throughout the whole 12 months.
Are we
We dug ourselves a hole.
Are we 80% sure or 90% sure? I mean, I'm just trying to get a handle on where this is.
It's a throw of the dice. You're gonna do your best to make sure it comes out where you get the biggest bang for your buck. Mel, what is our present tax rate?
The rate is .6007.
Okay,
And then there also is this local rate, which is like .0025, and which actually Joan and I will have to calculate. It isn't set by the city council. It's set by a calculation of the lost education taxes resulting from the Masonic Association's tax bill that the voters made exempt, and the veterans. And I can tell you Joan may not be confused about this. I'm a little confused because of the whole changeover of how the VA exemption is being handled. But I think that
I'm not sure what its impact's going to be.
I won't bore you with the details on that. But anyway, the rate that the city council needs to act on is what is currently .6007.
Right.
so if we were to raise it 2 cents, just an example, the new rate would be .6207.
That's correct.
I would ask for a motion for someone to set the rate. You set it, and then we'll have somebody second it. Nobody wants to be the bad guy.
I'll be the bad guy. I mean, it's got to happen. I mean, it just had, unfortunately, if this means the demise of me being on this council, it means the demise on this council, but I'm trying to be fiscally responsible. I will make a motion that we set the tax rate at .63, and then, that's where it is.
.63?
Yeah, might as well make it an even amount, and then we can discuss it. I mean, it's for discussion.
I have a motion to
Second.
set the tax rate as .6300, and Peter made the second. Now we'll open it for discussion.
I'm not talking about the rate, but maybe how it is set, and this may be just semantics.
Yes, sure.
But
You
I
have
think
the whole language.
we should do it by saying we're using less of the fund balance.
Right. That's exactly what would happen.
I know,
Right.
but I mean, to state it so that we're not just increasing the rate. We're using less of the fund balance, so we have some fund balance going into the new year.
Okay, I withdraw my motion, Rennie. Would you go ahead and state that?
Well, how much of an increase is what?
I went,
That's a 4.7% increase.
But how many cents?
63.
0.193
2 point.
cents.
It'd be, go to 63 cents.
Two.
Instead of-
That's right, you said
2.97,
63.
yeah.
Correct.
So that's 2 point what?
9.7.
It's actually 5%.
Two
Oh, it's
point-
07.
2.93 cents.
How many cents?
2.93 cents. 2.93 cents, right?
Yes.
Is
Yeah.
it 5%?
Yeah, but you gotta divide that by the current rate of 60.
No, I wasn't doing percents, I was just doing a straight, he was asking how many
So if that's 5
cents it
cents,
was.
it's like an average $100 on $200,000.
No,
All right.
no,
Explain this in
the
layman's terms.
penny, if you're talking about raising the tax rate by 3 cents,
Right,
okay? Then on a $200,000 home, their
Be
tax
60.
bill would go up $30.
$30. No,
No,
$60.
$60, I'm sorry.
$60.
$60, that's right.
I like the 30 a lot better, Mel.
That's right, because one penny
Yeah,
is 20,
it's 20.
three pennies is 60.
Right, but you said something about 5 cents.
007?
Yes.
607.
6,
007.
That's the
No, it's not
current
zero.
rate.
no.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
current rate is .6007.
Cents.
I go with 2, but I'm not going with 3.
Neither.
Well, it's not 3, it's actually under 3.
Well, 2.93, close enough.
Open for discussion, people.
We don't have, do we have?
We don't have to set it tonight, but it means if we don't, we're gonna have to come back, by the end of the week. And so,
I think
is
we've been-
it something people want to, think about?
No,
No?
I'm thinking about it now. We need 2 cents. That's kind of where, I mean, I'm totally in agreement with that we.
You need one, you need one.
We
there's no
need
question
one for
about that.
sure,
Yeah.
but 2 cents, I mean, to
Will give us
create
a little
any
extra.
sort of balance. You know, I don't know, do you wanna split hairs and do 247?
Well,
Which would be,
my reasoning behind that is that just 1 cent is $22,000 or $21,000. So if we go almost, that'd give us $40,000 that we could have in there. You know, in the budget.
For 2 cents, yeah.
Yeah, for almost 3.
No.
2
You'd
cents
have-
would be
He's saying 40,000 extra is what he's
40.
shooting for.
44,000.
he's saying 44 extra.
He's saying
He's saying
44
we
extra.
We absolutely need the
Top of the
one.
wage.
We need the 1,
Right.
So-
Oh, that's right.
so by going,
2 more be
3.
40,000.
right, going to an even 63 cents would give us just a little bit, you know, just a little bit extra if we have a catastrophe. We lose a furnace in one of our buildings, or we lose.
Oh, believe me, 40,000 wouldn't buy you a boiler.
No, I know, but it would put a dent in it at least.
Oh, yeah. You could pay on time.
I just proposed,
Yeah.
I
Okay.
proposed that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We gotta have some more discussion, or you want me to put it to the vote?
What's the motion?
The motion is that we increase the tax rate by 3 cents.
Who seconded it?
to-
Nope, the tax rate
Peter
we
did.
set
Peter.
at .6300.
People need 2 seconds to
To-
think about it.
But Randy brought up a point, it was to offset, so we create a reserve.
Yeah, I think it doesn't hurt for us to say we're doing that by not using as much fund balance as opposed to just raising the tax rate. It has the same effect, but.
Yeah, it shows responsibility. So I guess we should amend that to saying that no? Peter's shaking his head no.
I mean, whatever,
The-
the rationale kind of comes out afterwards. I mean, it's like, it's part of it is how it's gonna get explained out there. I mean, the motion is
Yeah.
pretty straightforward for me.
Needs to be raised.
No other discussion? All those in favor of setting the tax rate at .6300, raise their hand. All those against raising the tax rate to that amount, raise their hand.
Okay.
Okay, so we didn't raise the tax rate to that. That was turned down. Do I have another motion that somebody wants? Or again, do you want to take and set the tax rate later in the week when Mel.
I'll make a motion, we increase it by 2 cents even. 6207.
6207.
I'll second.
And Joe seconds it. Any discussion? No discussion needed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Everyone voted. The tax rate is set at 6207.
There goes that 5-year streak.
Actually, isn't it 6 now?
I don't know.
Oh, and we're
Okay.
gonna blame it on you,
Is
right?
there any other business that needs to be coming from this council tonight?
Maybe you were gonna say something, but I would like to invite everyone to the July 3rd fireworks and city celebration. They put on a great show. City band will be playing. Hot dogs will be sold. So it's a fun time, Tuesday night at the high school.
Yep.
Step out my back door.
We're all going to Randy's house.
Yeah. Good for me, will be. That's why the
And,
mosquitoes don't play.
Peter, you want to do the others?
Move we adjourn.
Have a second?
Second.
Ziggy made a second. I won't even ask you, we're adjourned.
Get you a